Hi, my name is Aaron, this is my show Reeducation, and today we're going to talk a little bit about how we need a new left. So, let's get into it. Okay, to first understand what I'm talking about when I say a new left, I have to give you a little bit of backstory, a little bit of history, and then from there we will jump off into the actual content of this video. I have to bury the lead a little bit because of this, so I apologize about that, but let's start off with a little bit of history. Okay, so throughout the history of socialism, we've actually seen a lot of different socialist experiments actually come to fruition through many different successful revolutions that all followed varying different tendencies. And even certain countries that didn't have successful revolutions were still able to teach us many different things about how to do revolutions, or possibly how to not do revolutions, and they had a lot of different, very important leftist critique that we all need to pay attention to. Now, for example, the Bolsheviks were able to have a revolution in Russia, Maoists were able to have a revolution in China, followers of Ho Chi Minh thought were able to have a revolution in Vietnam, anarchists in Spain, so forth and so on. And we can even look to democratic socialists in places like Norway or Scandinavia to see how even small reforms, or in some cases large reforms, of the capitalist system towards a socialist-ish direction can still really greatly help the people. All of these instances are places where we can learn, where we can grow, and where we can understand how different groups were able to do different things at different times. Usually under completely different circumstances, and that's kind of what I want to talk about today. One of the main arguments that I see a lot of different leftists using is that this certain group of revolutionists were able to achieve this thing, and this group weren't, and this group was able to achieve this thing, and this group wasn't, and therefore the group that was is more useful and better, and the group that wasn't is inferior, or whatever. And I just want to kind of dispel that notion right now by talking a little bit about how many revolutionists discussed these sorts of things in the past, specifically Mao. Now, I just finished reading a little bit of Mao and watching some Black Red Guard, really getting that whole Mao pill down my throat, and I learned a few things that I didn't really realize before that I think is important to talk about right now. And one of those things happens to do with material conditions and dogmatism. You see, all of these different groups and all of these different revolutionists throughout history and throughout all of these different countries all lived under completely different economic standards. They had completely different religious beliefs, political beliefs, completely different propaganda and news media and that sort of thing throughout their country, and a completely different history or climate or geographical location. All of these different factors are what Marxists refer to as material conditions. There are a lot of different material conditions that are going to be completely different in one area than they are in another. And in fact, in every single area, there are going to be completely different material conditions. And that's why certain revolutionary ideas work in some places, but completely fall on their face in others. Bolsheviks from Russia, put into the same situation in China, may or may not have been able to achieve the same thing that the Chinese communists were. Or the Vietnamese socialists being put into the same position as the Catalonian anarchists probably would have done things a lot different, and they would have had to, because in all of these different places, they have different ways of thinking, different belief structures, different material conditions. And those different material conditions lead to different types of revolutions. And in fact, they have to, because every single person in every single place across the world isn't going to have just one single solution that solves everything. And that's kind of what Mao was talking about when he discussed dogmatism. Dogmatists, as far as I'm concerned, even though my definition is probably different from many other tendencies, are those people who preach a lot of socialist ideas, but refuse to look at things through a broader lens. They refuse to look at things through any other lens than their specific ideological viewpoint. Sometimes this could mean that Maoists would only think that a people's war is the way forward. This could also mean that some certain types of anarchists might not believe in any sort of organization whatsoever. That's not what anarchists actually want, but let's take that as a hypothetical. All of these different factions, at the end of the day, basically want the same thing, a stateless, classless, moneyless society, but we all end up coming at each other head on when it comes to how we get there. Now, obviously, I'm an anarchist, and I think that all of the ways that we use to get to a revolution has to be through democratic, decentralized, hopefully anarchistic methods, but there are a lot of different ways that people have seen that revolutions and socialist ideas have been pushed throughout history. Do I think that if the Vietnamese during the Vietnam War were to use anarchistic tactics that they would have had a better revolution and a better solution to their capitalist problem? Maybe. But I wasn't there to make those decisions. They were. They were the ones that made all of those decisions, and that's all in the past. That's all history, and they had to use what they had at the time to get where they needed to go. Some would argue that they haven't gotten where they need to go. I, in fact, would say that even most communists in Vietnam or in China or in basically any socialist country would agree that they haven't gotten where they need to go, but a lot of them are looking at this as a way to get there. Do all tendencies agree? No. Have all tendencies been successful? No. Have all tendencies failed? No. The important thing is to look at all of these different ideologies, all of these different belief structures, all of these different ways of framing the leftist argument and picking out what is good, holding on to that, and throwing away what is bad. Now, let's come back around to what I was talking about at the very beginning, how we need a new left. What exactly am I talking about when I say that? We already have all of these different leftist ideas. Why don't we just use one of those? Well, the truth is that in America and in the global north, we can't. There hasn't actually been any successful communist revolution across the entire Western hemisphere. There hasn't really been a successful communist revolution in all of North America or in most of Western Europe. Any of the ideas or philosophies or thought processes going into making a revolution are going to have to be completely different, or at least very different, than anything else that's happened in any other country before it, because the material conditions require it to be as such. Of course, that doesn't mean that we should jeopardize our morals or our beliefs or any of the tendencies that we want to use to be able to create a successful revolution. Many of us believe that the only way forward is to use, say, an anarchistic way of organizing. But since the material conditions are so much different, we really need to talk to one another and find out if what we're saying is actually just the same thing, but using different words. For example, a lot of state communists or authoritarian communists, tankies as many people call them, a lot of people say that they want to have a strong state. Now, some of them do, but what they mean by state is something that is very different than what most anarchists mean by state. And if we're able to get over that language barrier, we might actually find out that some of us, not all, but some of us are much more closely aligned with each other's beliefs than we once thought. We're just using different words. We're using different lingo. We essentially are using different languages, and that's where we're having a problem. The language barrier between Marxist-Leninists and anarchists and Maoists, and social democrats for that matter, are all so different that when we're all talking about virtually the same thing, we have vastly different opinions on it. So not only is there actually a lot of agreement between many of the different tendencies within the leftist sphere in the West, a lot of us fight against one another because of branding, basically, because of marketing, because of labels, because somebody wears a communist t-shirt and another person wears an anarchist t-shirt, and instead of talking to one another, they just look at that signifier and assume that they know everything about that person before they actually get involved. All of these different tendencies preach different ideas and different solutions and different methodologies, and we need to be looking at all of them and seeing what would work for us. That doesn't mean that it's throwing all of the shit at the wall to see what sticks. We do already have a good understanding of what would work and what could work, and how we could organize to make things work. We just have to make sure that we're working together to achieve those things through tactical unity and basically building a new left. A modern left that's willing to deal with the modern problems that we face today in a unified, coherent way. We've looked at a lot of the different things that the left has done over the past few years and seen that there is evidence that we can base a lot of our ideas on. We can see clearly that doing things like trying to infiltrate the Democratic Party and create some sort of socialist contingency within it probably won't work, so we have to work on scrapping that idea, or at least putting it onto the back burner while we try to achieve other things. Maybe forming some sort of new leftist party, like a People's Party, or maybe forming democratic from the ground up, decentralized organizations that can function together as some sort of political force or party that can push anarchist ideas. All of those might be more beneficial than going through the Democratic Party method. Also, using methods like direct action and mutual aid to build societies and to build communities that can actually function with one another and withstand the collapse of the capitalistic system. Those are things that we need to be focusing on as well in a major, major way. And I've talked a lot about that sort of thing in the past. And I don't necessarily see it as some sort of competition between tendencies when different groups want to use different methods at achieving certain goals. If Maoists want to go around using mass line organizing, then I think that they should. Whereas if syndicalists want to primarily focus on organizing unions, then I think that they should. And if other people, anarchists and leftists of all sorts, want to organize tenants unions and mutual aid projects and building dual power structures and that sort of thing, then they should definitely be doing that. And if there's certain groups, like communalists, that want to get involved in local politics and try to sway things on a local governmental level, then I also think that that is necessary as well. But we need a diversity of tactics. We need a lot of these different ideas. We need a lot of these different methods so we can find out what works best, and what might work best is us all working together. We shouldn't be looking at this as an either or a this or a that. We should be looking at this as a let's try what works situation. And if many things are working, then many things should be our solution. There's a lot of people to handle a lot of different problems. And we need something of a rainbow coalition to really achieve all of the many, many problems that we see within the world. There aren't just labor problems or racial problems or sexual problems. They're all problems. They're all problems that we need to solve. They're all problems that we need to fix. And if we work together, we can find actual solutions and ways to fix those things. And we can also find out what the primary contradictions are, the primary conflicts that we have are, and focus the majority of our efforts towards those things. Maybe we'll find out that the class struggle specifically in setting up dual power structures is actually the way to go and the most important method going forward. Or maybe we'll find out something else is, but whatever it is, we have to be working together to get there. And we're not going to get there alone. I like what Black Redguard was saying actually in a video, and if I remember, I'll try to link it in the description box below. He was saying that we are just regular people. We're just regular communists or anarchists or socialists. We're not gods. We can't just go into a community and expect that we can change everything. We have to work with that community to actually build something new and to actually work with them to create the world that they need and want and desire. But we can't just snap our fingers and make it so. We have to do the real work on the ground, and to do that, we need things like tactical unity. We need things like a diversity of tactics. We need things like scientific socialism and anarchism working together to find out how we solve these real, tangible problems with real, tangible solutions. A friend of mine, Zonzi, likes to say that politics is something you do, not something you say you are. And I agree with that. I believe in anarchist philosophy. I believe in anarchist ideals, and when I get onto the ground, I perform anarchism in every way that I can. In every group that I'm in, I try to push for democracy, I try to push for egalitarian decentralization, and every project I'm involved with, I try to use anarchist tactics to push it forward, because I personally believe that that is the best way of moving forward. But if somebody else is able to come up with something else that works, and is actually able to create the change that we want to see in the world, then that's the method that we should at least think about and try to adapt and try to evolve so we can use it. Now, this isn't to say that we should resort to fascist tactics or authoritarianism just so we can accomplish a goal. Like I've said many times before, the means of which you use to perform your revolution are just as important as the revolution itself and the goals in which you want to achieve in a revolution. But we also have to not be dogmatists, and we have to be willing to look at ideas and solutions in a holistic, well-rounded way, because that's the only real way that we can win. We don't know what ideas are going to succeed, so instead of sectarianism, let's work together. You can still keep your personal little tendency, your ideology. You can still call yourself an anarchist or a socialist or a Marxist-Leninist or whatever. But you have to understand that at the end of the day, the tendency that is going to evolve, the thing that actually changes the United States or the West in general, is not some sort of tendency that already exists. It's not going to be Marxism, Leninism, Maoism. It's not going to be the exact same solution that the anarchists in Catalonia came up with. It's going to be something new. And you have to be ready to work with that. We have an incredibly vast library of important socialist work and critique and ideas and solutions that we can pull from. And we need to look at what's good, we need to hold on to that, and throw away what isn't. That's what we need to do. That's why we need a new left for a new era. At least that's the way I look at it. If you do get a chance, please check out all the links in the description box below. Hit that little bell button because you know that they're not going to let you know when I release a new video. Make sure you're subscribed because they're unsubscribing people every single day. And please help us out by donating to our Direct Action Fund. We use the Direct Action Fund money to basically fund some volunteers in my area to go around doing different direct action things. Within the next couple of days, we're actually going to be putting together a lot of school lunches for some little kids that just don't have food on their way to school right now. So if you can, please donate to that. It's really, really super duper important. It really, really helps us out. And also, if you like what I do and you want to help fund me and keep my power on, donate to my Patreon. Every dollar helps fund this show. Thanks for watching.